Okay, I'm going to get started by welcoming all of you guys. Welcome to everyone here. Welcome to everyone online who's joining as well. Today is our group learning program where I'm going to be sharing with you guys a breathing mindfulness meditation just to guide you in that, to help you get started in our class. It really helps to actually train your mind, of course, to get to enlightenment, but it also helps you before class because it helps you to be more focused and concentrated to be able to learn. That's one of the reasons why we meditate prior to class. And then afterwards, we're going to then learn about true love without attachment. This is where you can learn about how if you're falling in love and out of love, this actually isn't love. You're going to be able to understand what true love is, so that then the more you practice true love, you'll be able to actually experience true love. If you're experiencing broken relationship after broken relationship, this is most likely because you're not understanding what true love is and practicing true love, because oftentimes there's a misunderstanding of what is true love in the unenlightened mind. So I'm going to explain to you guys what that is and teach it to you. And then I'm going to give you some examples from my life as well to be able to help you see this. And then you'll be able to more easily practice it. But this is going to take time for you to gradually build up your practice of true love. So if you'd like to join for meditation, I'm going to start with the chanting. Then I'm going to come in with the guidance. There's going to be a period of time where it's just quiet and we're all meditating together. Then we're going to come out of the meditation with some more chanting. And then that's where I'll start today's class. Arahang Samma Sambuddho Bhagava Wat Tung Bhagavanang Abhivateyami Savakato Bhagavata Tammo Dhammang namasami Supatipano bhagavato Sāvaka Saṅkho Saṅghang namami Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Iti piso bhagava Arahang Samma Sambuddho Vicacaranang sammuno Sakato rokavitu Anutero purisa Dhamma sati satatawa manusanang Bhutto Bhagavati. Okay, with the lower body and hands and arms comfortable, in the upper body erect. Just close the eyes and start breathing in through the nose and out through the nose. Here you're just looking to establish the breath. A nice, natural, steady, consistent breath. Not forced or controlled, just a gradual inhale through the nose, experiencing the full breath. And then whenever you're ready, exhale out through the nose. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. Your breath may not match up with the guidance that I'm providing, and that's okay. This is your practice. I'm just here for guidance. You can use this voice as a reminder that whenever you get to the next inhale, breathing gradually through the nose, developing a nice, natural, steady, consistent breath. And then whenever you're ready, exhale out through the nose, experiencing the full breath. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. With the breath well established, start fixating the mind on the breath, either the sound of the breath coming into the nose or the sensation of air moving over the skin into the nose. The breath is the present moment. Fixate the mind on the breath, the present moment. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. With the mind fixated on the breath, whenever you notice that it moves off the breath, cut that off, let it go, and come back to the breath, the present moment. No need to observe the thought, label it, judge it, analyze it, or even try to figure out where it's coming from. Whenever you notice that the mind is moved off the breath, cut that off, let it go, and come back to the breath, the present moment. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. I'm going to be quiet now and let you do this work of focusing on the breath, cutting off and letting go anytime the mind moves off the breath. You have nowhere to go. There's nothing to do. No one needs you right now. This is your time to focus on the breath. Breathing in and out. อะระหังสัมมาสัมพุทโธมหะเกวาพุทธังมหะเกวันหังอภิวาเทมิสวากขาโตมหะเกวัตตาธัมโมธัมมังนามัสสามิสุปฏิปันโนมหะเกวัตโตสาวกสังโฆสังฆังนามามินะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะอิติปิโสมหะเกวาอะระหังสัมมาสัมพุทโธวิชาจารณังสัมมุโนสกาโตโรกาวิตุอนุเตโรปุริสาดัมมาสติสัตตาตาวามนุสรังพุทโธภควาติ Okay, if you guys would like to slowly make your way out of meditation. Once again, welcome to all of you guys here. Welcome to everyone who's joining online as well. What I'm going to do is share with you guys a talk on true love, love without attachment. We go chapter by chapter in this program each week, where I cover a chapter in this book. And we're in chapter 15 now, which is titled True Love, Love Without Attachment. Because everything that the Buddha taught is to help you cultivate wisdom and train your mind. There's certain wisdom that the unenlightened mind doesn't have. And one of the things that it typically doesn't understand is what is true love. If you're falling in love with people and you're falling out of love with people, you're not quite understanding what is true love. And this is the reason why you're falling in love and out of love, that it's not actually true love. If you're noticing you're having broken relationship after broken relationship, this is because the mind isn't yet understanding what true love is. It doesn't have that wisdom. So therefore, if you're not practicing true love, you're not going to experience true love coming back to you. So I'm going to help you guys to understand what is true love, love without attachment, because this is what's going to help you to improve your relationships. By the time you get to enlightenment, not only is your mind peaceful, calm, serene, and content with joy, where it's no longer experiencing any discontent feelings, you've eliminated all the anger, sadness, frustration, irritation, annoyance, guilt, shame, fear, stress, anxiety, loneliness, boredom, shyness, resentment, jealousy. Not only of that is out of the mind, but the mind's focus. You have concentration, clarity, and deep memory, because you've uprooted the causes and conditions that are producing the discontent mind, these pollutions that the Buddha discovered. You also aren't experiencing the lack of concentration and lack of memory that an unenlightened mind will typically experience. You'll notice that your personal and professional relationships are really blossoming. They'll be at ease, because as long as your mind's in the unenlightened state, you're going to have a certain amount of bitterness and harshness and hostility in your mind. And you're going to think that that's coming from other people when it's reality is coming from your own mind. You can actually transform your mind and get to the point where you're only being loving and kind with the people around you. And this is going to transform your mind, and it's going to transform your relationships, and it's going to transform your life, because you don't need to experience this bitterness and harshness and hostility coming back to you because you've transformed the way that you interact with other people. Oftentimes people think the way to fix your relationships is to change the other person. That's usually what the unenlightened mind's trying to do. But what you learn on this path is the work is inside your own mind and transforming your own mind. And that's what's going to then transform your life and your relationships. So I'm going to help you to understand this topic, and I'm going to pause a few times, seeing if you guys have questions, because you might be interested in asking clarifying questions. And as you do, here at the temple, we have the microphones in the white bowl there. If you could pick up a microphone, you can take it back to your seat if you like. Just press the gray button. You're going to see the lights come on. Just give it a second or so, and if you hold it up to your chin, you'll be able to hear you here at the temple, and they'll be able to hear you online as well. If you speak here without a microphone, they won't be able to hear you online. And then you can keep these microphones with you, because you might have more than one question, or someone around you might have a question. And if you could just turn it off, that would be helpful so we don't get feedback through the speakers. And then for those of you guys that are online, you can put your questions into Facebook, YouTube, or Zoom in the comment section. Or in Zoom, you can electronically raise your hand, unmute your mic, and ask any and all questions that you like that way. So in order to understand this topic of true love, I need to first explain to you what love is not. Because by understanding what love is not, then I can help you to understand what love is. Because the unenlightened mind is having this misunderstanding of what true love is. So if you're experiencing painful feelings, in sorrow and grief and displeasure, it's actually not coming from your love. Sometimes people think that love hurts and love is painful, and therefore they're actually hesitant to get into any kind of relationships with people because they think that it's their love that is causing the pain and the misery and the difficulties and struggles in their day-to-day life. But it's not actually your love that's causing that. So let me help you understand what's actually causing the painful feelings first. This is one of the very first teachings of the Buddha. It's called the Four Noble Truths. And for those of you guys that have been studying with me, you guys already know the Four Noble Truths because you've studied them with me before. But you might need a little bit of a refresher, or some people that haven't studied before. Let me just share with you these in just kind of a summary form. In 4 simple statements, the Buddha is helping you to understand what is the problem in your mind, the cause of the problem, the elimination of it, and the path forward. The problem that the Buddha discovered in the mind is that it experiences discontentedness, that it's happy and excited, experiencing all these pleasant feelings, but then it's sad, experiencing painful feelings like anger, sadness, frustration, and others. And then there's these neither painful nor pleasant feelings like shyness or uncomfortableness or displeasure. Essentially, the unenlightened mind is going up and down and up and down. It's unstable, it's unsteady. It's only a matter of time before the unenlightened mind becomes irritated or annoyed or frustrated about something. So this is the problem that the Buddha discovered in the unenlightened mind. The second noble truth is explaining the cause of that it's craving, desire, attachment, the mind's longing, yearning, chasing after the objects of its affection. If it gets what it wants, it experiences happiness or some other pleasant feeling like excitement or elation. But if the mind doesn't get what it wants, it gets painful feelings like anger, sadness, frustration, and others. And then there's the neither painful nor pleasant feelings that they can experience as well. This is being caused by one's own mind. It's the craving, desire, attachment, the wanting things to be permanent, but yet you live in an impermanent world. And the mind can only be happy if it gets what it wants. So for example, if the mind really wants it to be sunny outside and it's sunny, you'll be really happy and excited about that. But then when it switches to rain, then you'll be frustrated or agitated or annoyed. The only thing that's happened here is change. That's all that's happened. And there wasn't any other person involved here. Oftentimes the unenlightened mind thinks that it's other people that are causing you to be angry or frustrated or annoyed or any of these other discontent feelings. But you can see when the it moves from sun to rain, that there's no other person involved. So you can see that it's not another person causing you to be angry or frustrated. Or if you get really happy when your bank account balance is up here, when it moves down here, you'll get annoyed or frustrated. Again, there's no other person involved. It's just change. The mind craves permanence. So when it experiences change, the mind doesn't like that. So it's happening in relationships too. If you're in a boyfriend, girlfriend, or husband or wife relationship, when you guys first get together, you might be so happy and excited with that. You've got this new person in your life that's showing you affection. You guys are having great conversations. You're going to maybe the park or the movies or going out to dinner. You might be having sexual contact. And at the beginning of the relationships, wow, things seem so great and so wonderful and so perfect. So many pleasant feelings at the beginning of the relationship. But then as time goes on, you have these expectations. You want this person to be a certain way, and they can't live up to that. And then they want you to be a certain way, and you can't live up to that permanently because the world is impermanent. And now there's this disgruntledness and frustration in the mind of each individual, and the relationship might even break up. And now when the relationship's over, maybe now you're really angry, really frustrated. Maybe you're lonely or bored or missing this person. What's happening here is the mind is holding on and craving permanence, wanting the relationship to be permanent, when in reality it's impermanent. That this relationship was never permanent from the very beginning. This relationship was going to end at some point. That even if you guys were together for the rest of your lives, more likely than not, one of you would have died first. So you can see through the Four Noble Truths, particularly the second noble truth, that it's your own mind that's causing these feelings. And as long as you crave for this relationship to be permanent, then when you experience this impermanence, that's where you'll have difficulties and struggles in the relationship. And now, as the relationship is over, then that's where the real challenge comes in. And eventually you get to the point where you might decide that as the relationship is over, and now maybe this person's moved on to be with another partner. And maybe you're jealous of that, and your mind's holding on and holding on. But eventually you get to the third noble truth, where you understand that you can eliminate your discontentedness by eliminating the craving, desire, attachment, where you're not holding on and craving for this relationship to be permanent. You can train your mind to let go. But when you are holding on and wanting this relationship to be permanent, the mind has difficulties and struggles during that period of time. Or maybe they decide to move to another part of the world, and now your mind is holding on and craving for them to be permanent. Or maybe they just go on a business trip for 2 or 3 weeks, and now you're missing them and you're feeling lonely and bored. This isn't the love that's causing that. That's the mind holding on and craving permanence, wanting them to be in your life permanently. And your feelings are attached to whether they're with you or not. If they're with you, then you have that happiness and excitement. But if they're not with you, then you feel that anger or sadness, or you're lonely or bored or missing this person. And they can't be with you permanently. It's not possible. So as long as the mind is holding on and craving permanence, then it can't be peaceful and joyful permanently. So it's the third noble truth that's helping you to be able to see that you can let this go. But you need to first understand the second noble truth, that it's your own mind that's causing these feelings. Because the mind's going to think in the unenlightened state that it's other people that are causing you to be angry or frustrated, and the mind becomes unskillful and it tends to push people away. It's bitter, harsh, and hostile to them, or you might put your expectations on people and try to control them. So you need to be able to see that it's your own mind that's causing this through craving, desire, attachment, longing, yearning. The mind oftentimes thinks that it's love that's causing this, but you're going to understand what true love is here in a moment. So you can actually eliminate your discontent feelings by eliminating the craving, desire, attachment. If you eliminate the cause where you're not holding on and you're wanting this relationship to be permanent, now you can eliminate the effect, which is the discontentedness. And the fourth noble truth is helping you to understand that the path to eliminate discontentedness is the Eightfold Path. This is the complete, perfect plan that's going to guide you in how to eliminate your discontentedness. So in the unenlightened state, an individual might meet somebody, you get to know that person, and at the beginning, everything's going wonderful. And then at some point, you guys start getting angry and frustrated with each other, right? But before that, you guys might have even spent time together, going to the movies, having great conversations, having sex, all these different things, and all these great feelings come along. And you might even say to the person, I love you. And they say, oh, I love you too. Oh, we're in love now. We're in love. Well, then as time goes on, we're in love. But then at some point, there's this anger and frustration in the relationship. And now you guys break up. And you might say, I don't love you anymore. We have to end our relationship. Or that person might say that to you, that they don't love you anymore. This isn't actually love. This is craving, desire, attachment masquerading as love. The mind is basically experiencing what we might call conditional love. There's no such thing as conditional love, but that might be what we call it, just to help you understand this. That the mind is basically saying, okay, at the beginning of the relationship, you don't really have many expectations. You're just interested to get to know this person. That's why it goes so well at the beginning of the relationship, because you don't have expectations for them. You're not wanting or controlling them to be a certain way. You're just interested to get to know them. And now at the beginning of the relationship, everything's going wonderful. All these pleasant feelings. But then usually around the time where you have sex for the first time, that's where the expectations come in. And you start wanting things from them, and they start wanting things from you. And now that list grows and grows and grows. As long as they're meeting your expectations, you'll say, I love you, or I've fallen in love with you. And now you'll function as if you love them through your intentions, your speech, and your actions. But then when they stop doing things your way, they're not meeting your expectations anymore, you'll say, I don't love you anymore. I've fallen out of love with you. And again, people are doing this potentially to you too. That's not the love. That's the conditions. That's the expectations. That if you do things my way, I will tell you I love you, and I will function as if I love you. But when you stop doing things my way, all bets are off. I don't love you anymore. I can't function as if I love you. Now there's this hostility and bitterness and harshness coming towards the other person from one's own mind. So this is craving, desire, attachment masquerading as love. Again, we might call it conditional love, that there's all these conditions that need to be met in order for this person to now function as if you love them. Right? But then all your expectations keep growing and growing and growing and growing and growing. And eventually your expectations become so much that this person can't actually fulfill them any longer. And they're doing the same thing to you potentially. And then eventually the individual or you say, I don't love you anymore. And the relationship's over. And it's unfortunate that this is occurring because it's not actually love. There might be love in there, but it's being tainted and polluted by craving, desire, attachment. So when you get rid of these craving, desire, attachment, these expectations and wanting this person to be a certain way, then your true love can actually shine through. What true love is it's unconditional love, where you love the person unconditionally, where you're not putting expectations on them and trying to control them and force them to do things a certain way, that you can love them as they are. Understanding that you can disagree with a person's choices and decisions while still loving the person themselves. Oftentimes we think we can only love people if they do things our way. That's what craving, desire, attachment does. If they do things my way, I will love them. But if they don't do things my way, I can't love them anymore. That's the craving, desire, attachment. That's the expectations. That's what we might call conditional love, even though there's no such thing as that. But this unconditional love is that, hey, you didn't earn my love. So there's nothing you can do for me to fall out of love with you. I just love you as you are, right? I'm not trying to control you. I'm not trying to put expectations on you. I'm not trying to force you to do things a certain way. I just love you as you are, realizing that because of impermanence and the world is completely impermanent around you, that sometimes I'm going to agree with your decisions and sometimes I'm not. And that's okay. Right? But I can still love the person, meaning have a genuine interest in seeing this person be well, have active goodwill towards this person. If we can only love people who do things our way, there's only one person that we can love in the world, because there's only one person that does things your way all the time. Yeah, you know who it is, right? It's yourself. You're the only one that can do things your way all the time. And you might actually have trouble loving yourself sometimes, right? Sometimes you have that. You might have this inner dialogue or this degrading, diminishing inner voice within your own mind where you're degrading yourself and you're putting expectations on yourself. And if you don't meet your expectations, you might beat yourself up about that, right? You're not loving yourself. So if you can only love people who do things your way, you can only be peaceful and joyful when people do things your way. way. Well, there's 8 billion people in the world, and you're not going to be able to train them all to do it your way. So when you understand what true love is, which is to love people as they are, understanding you're going to disagree with their choices and decisions, then you can love everybody. You can love all beings. So what we typically experience growing up is we experience our parents putting expectations on us and trying to control us and force us to do things a certain way. And because our mind understands that our parents are supposed to love us, when we get all those expectations from our parents, we start to think that that is the love. Our mind gets conditioned to think that way, where our mind can't see the true love, the unconditional love, because we've got all these expectations coming at us. And now when we grow up that way, we go out into the world thinking that that's love. And now we start putting expectations on people and trying to control them and force them and pressure them to do things our way. And then when they don't do the things that way, or the relationship dissolves, then the mind is experiencing anger and sadness and frustration. So we need to get to the point where we understand that everybody's going to do things differently than us, and that's okay. That there's never going to be a time where everybody in the world does things exactly the same. And then you can just love a person as they are unconditionally. So like all of you, and all of you guys online, everybody that studies with me, everybody that I come in contact with, even people I've never met before, I can love everybody because I have an interest in seeing everyone be well. And they didn't do anything to earn my love, so therefore there's nothing they can do for me to stop loving them. I will love everybody, meaning I have a genuine interest in seeing them be well. I don't suggest you do this, but if you went out and killed somebody today and you called me from jail and said, "Hey, David, I killed somebody. I need to talk to you." Okay, I'll come talk to you, right? I love you as you are. I disagree with the choice and decision of having murdered, but I can still love you, meaning I have an interest in seeing you be well. Because the anger, the hatred, the bitterness and hostility, that's coming from the mind with expectations, that the mind expects this person, wants this person to do things a certain way. And they're not going to do it that way. They're going to do things their own way. So if you can only love people who do things your way, again, you can only love one person in the world, and you might find that hard to do. So if you get your longing, your yearning, your expectations out of the way, then your true love can shine through more and more in all your relationships. And you can have very fulfilling, very satisfying and sustaining relationships. But as long as you're putting your expectations on people and trying to control them to do things your way, you can't get to that. So let me give you a few examples from my life so you can see how this plays out. Before I understood this, I might have gone to my wife and I would say, "Hey, there's this new movie coming out. I'd like to go to this movie. Do you want to go to this movie? Like, let's go see this movie. It's going to be really nice." And she might say, "No, I'm just going to stay home. I'm not interested in going." And I might have been like, "Come on, you party pooper. Like, come on. Don't you want to go out to the movies? It's going to be a really good movie. Let's go." "No, I don't want to go." "Come on, you got to go to the movies. It's a really good movie. It's the best movie all year long. Come on, you got to go to the movies." And then maybe she eventually is like, "All right, I'll go to the movies. Let's go." Right? And then she goes, and this is all in the past, of course, but she'd be grumpy and irritable and frustrated. And then I'd be grumpy and irritable and frustrated too, because she's not getting what she wants, which is to stay home. So she's grumpy and irritable. And I'm not getting what I want, which is I would have liked to take a happy wife out to the movies and spend time with her. So neither one of us are getting what we want, so we're just grumpy and irritable the whole time on the movies, right? So nobody's experiencing anything wonderful, right? So that's like a way to do things with craving, desire, attachment, and that's not what you're interested in doing. When you come to understand these teachings, now what I might do is I might go to my wife and say, "Hey, your son and I would like to take you out on a date. Would you like to go out on a date with us?" She's like, "I don't know where you guys would like to go." I'll say, "Oh, we're thinking of taking you to the movies. There's this really good movie coming out. Would you like to go?" And she might say, "No, I'm going to stay home. I'd like to stay home." "Okay, sounds good. Well, we're going to go to this movie. We'll see you when we get home. Bye-bye." And now we go, right? Where before, I thought that I could only be happy if she comes with me. My feelings were attached to her and I wanted her to be with me. And I thought that that's what I needed in order to be happy. But in a situation where your mind doesn't have attachment, you can be happy if she goes and you can be happy if she doesn't go too. Because her choosing not to go doesn't mean she doesn't love us, doesn't mean she doesn't enjoy spending time with us. It's just at that moment, she would like to stay home. Maybe she's got some project she's working on. Maybe she's working on some book, or maybe she's reading something, or maybe she's putting together some yoga routine or something like that. Who knows what she might be working on? But if we try to force her and control her to do it our way, now we're trying to put expectations on her and pressure her to do it our way. And we can only be happy if she does it our way. So that means that our happiness shrinks and becomes less and less and less because we want all these people to do things our way. Whereas if you get rid of all that and you realize her going to the movies isn't a sign that she loves us or that she doesn't love us, it's just a choice that she's making, and she's going to make choices in a different way. And we can maintain our happiness and joy whether she comes or whether she doesn't come. Right? So this is the way that you can train your mind to get to the point where you're not pressuring and controlling people or putting expectations on people and wanting them to be a certain way. And the things that people do for us, like when I first met my wife and we were boyfriend, girlfriend, and we lived together, she used to cook. She used to clean the house. She used to wash my laundry and all these other things because she didn't have a job at that point. And she did those things because she cared for me, right? And she had love for me. But that's not her love. The cooking, cleaning, doing laundry, that's not the love. That's just an action that she's choosing to do because of her love, her mental state of love. So over time, as things changed, now we're 18 years into our relationship, she doesn't cook for me anymore, right? She doesn't clean for me anymore. She doesn't do my laundry anymore, right? She has a son now. She has a job now. Has other things that she's doing. And I've changed too. I don't even eat the same food that she cooks. I eat different food now. So everything's changed in our life 18 years later because of impermanence. Whereas if I thought the cooking, cleaning, and doing laundry was her love, when she stopped doing those things, I would think that she doesn't love me anymore. But it's not the actions that is the love, it's the mental state. Sometimes people think love is a feeling, but feelings arise, they change, and they fade away. Feelings are conditional, based on some craving, desire, attachment. Like I mentioned, if you see it sunny, you'll get happy and excited about that. But then when it's raining, you'll be sad or frustrated or annoyed. Those are feelings that arise, they change, and they fade away. They are impermanent because they're based on an impermanent situation. The happiness when it's sunny outside is based on the sun. So that means when the sun goes away, and the sun will go away because it's not permanent, then your feeling goes away. So love is not a feeling. It doesn't arise, change, and fade away. If you're noticing an arising, changing, and fading away, that's a feeling. That's your pleasant feelings or your painful feelings. Love is a mental state that is permanent. It's unconditioned. It is always present. So you can love people unconditionally, where they don't need to meet any conditions in order for you to love them. And then you can just love everybody, meaning you have an interest in seeing them be well. You have active goodwill towards them. That's what it means to love someone. Understanding that each person is responsible for their own wellness. So even though you have a genuine interest in seeing them be well, you're not responsible for their wellness. Each person is responsible for their own wellness. Sometimes people put the expectation on themselves that they're responsible for someone else to be well. Like if mom and dad are sick, or brothers and sisters, or a life partner, they think that it's their responsibility. Now you might choose to help them to get well, but ultimately it's their decisions that are going to lead to them being well. It's not your decisions. Each individual person is making their own decisions. But if you're trying to force and control people to do things your way, this isn't the love. This is the expectation. So I can give you guys plenty of examples of this, but I'm just going to pause here and see if you guys have any questions on what is true love, what is unconditional love. And of course, we were talking about this craving, desire, attachment, this masquerading as love too. So if you guys would like to ask questions here, you guys have the microphones. And then for those of you guys online, you can put your questions into Facebook, YouTube, or Zoom, or you can raise your hand in Zoom and ask any questions that you like. So it looks like you have a question.
Can you hear it?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So I feel that when you get engaged with somebody, sometimes you expect things from these people because just of reality. So for example, if you have a son with somebody, you can expect if you have a son with somebody,
Oh, okay. A son.
a son.
Yeah.
If you are one, yeah.
The batteries are impermanent. You might try another
Even the
microphone. Yeah. There you go.
Yeah. One? Okay.
Yep.
So if you have a son with somebody, you expect this person to not hurt your child.
Mm-hmm.
So there is some kind of expectation here.
Uh-huh.
And I'm wondering if if you can take off all expectation or not in real life.
Yes, you can. If you could turn off that other mic, because that's where we're getting the feedback from. You can take out all expectations, because expectations are just going to lead to discontent feelings. I'll give you a simple example, and then we can come back to this one to help you see this. If my wife had the expectation that I would take out the trash, right? She's going to sleep at night, and she's like, "Hey, David, can you take out the trash?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure, I'll take out the trash. I'll do it before I go to sleep." And if she expects me to take it out, now when she goes to sleep and she wakes up in the morning and she sees I didn't take out the trash, she'll be angry and frustrated. That's because she's craving permanence and for things to be done her way. And now she's angry and bitter and hostile and harsh, and that would come out in her intentions, speech, and actions, and it would damage the relationship. But if she goes to bed saying, "Hey, do you mind could you take out the trash?" I'm like, "Yeah, sure, I'll take it out." And now she goes to sleep without an expectation, just knowing that she asked me to do it. And when she wakes up, she sees the trash is still there. Oh, okay. Well, something happened here. So she has choices to make. She can either talk to me about it in the morning when I wake up and see if I would be willing to take it out, or she could take it out herself, or she could ask her son to take it out. But if you have an expectation that it'll be done a certain way, then you're just going to not have that expectation met sometimes, because having it met every single time would be permanence, but yet you live in an impermanent world. So you need to be able to understand that there's going to be this impermanence. So now going to a situation where you have a son and you're interested, and this actually happened with us, is that if you have an expectation that your partner is not going to hurt your son, well, now if they did do something where they physically hurt them, you would be angry and you'd be frustrated, and you wouldn't be able to deal with the problem of figuring out what needs to happen here. So at one time, my son came to me and he told me that his mom hit him on the hands with a ruler. And I don't hit my son at all. I've never even raised my hand at him because I was beat as a child, and I know what that does, and I choose not to do those kinds of things with my son. So he came to me and he told me that his mom was hitting him with the ruler and threatening to hit him with the ruler. And I was like, "Oh, okay, that's unfortunate. That's not the way that I interact with you." And he goes, "Yeah, I know. That's why I came to tell you." And I said, "Okay, well, how about we go talk to Mom and we discuss this and see what's going on?" So we went upstairs to her room and we talked to her and we discussed it. And we need to discuss it 2 or 3 times over the course of multiple weeks and months. And finally, now she doesn't hit him anymore. But I never put my expectations on her. I never tried to control her. I just asked her questions. I said, Bailan tells me that you have hit him with the ruler. And, whatever she said, I don't remember 100%. And we talked about it. And I said, "Well, do you think this is the best way to do this? Is there another way for you to help him? Is there another way for you to talk to him and discuss it with him?" And then I also explained to her my background of what I experienced growing up and helped her to see that it's just going to produce fear. And it's going to produce difficulties in their relationship. And then over time, she chose to stop hitting him, right? But it was me helping her to see the wisdom of it in a kind and polite and respectful way. And if I was angry, if I had an expectation, I would have never been able to do that. So that's why it's important to get your expectations out of the way, but then understand there is wise ways to do things in the world. And now you can share that wisdom, particularly with a life partner, but you wouldn't be interested in doing it in a way where you're putting the expectation on them and trying to control them. And you're also not interested in doing it in an unsolicited way. So like when we go into my wife's room, we might walk into a room and say, "Hey, Mommy, we would like to talk to you about something. Is this a good time to talk?" And she might say, "Well, what would you guys like to talk about?" And I'll say, "Well, we would like to talk about Bailan came to me and mentioned to me about you hitting him. And we would like to discuss this because we think it's a good idea for us to all discuss it." She's like, okay, what would you like to talk about? So she's open to the discussion rather than us just barging in and starting to accuse her of things and tell her how wrong she is and she shouldn't do this. That's not going to lead anywhere. But that's what an expectation will do for you. If you have an expectation in your mind, it'll motivate unskillful conduct. And that's what you'd like to get rid of. So getting rid of an expectation doesn't mean that you just accept the fact that your partner's hitting your child. You just approach it in a different way with a clear mind and helping to cultivate wisdom so that you can get to better results through improved decision making. Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah, you have a question? Let me go to Yusuf online here and then I'll come back to you. Yusuf, you have a question?
Yeah, teacher. You say that we should love all beings, starting with ourselves, right?
Yes.
Okay. So there is a story that the monks tell. I don't remember the story 100%, but I will make one that is similar. We'll do the purpose. Let's say that there were 10 individuals hiding in a cave, and the king of that area was interested in one of them, any one of them to kill, let's say that. So when the guards came to the cave to take only one of them, the guards asked the 10 individuals to give them only one of these 10 individuals here, only one. They can choose who is that one. So there is the sick one, there is the old one, there is the child, there is the infant, and etc. What the monk said, that the best way here to handle it, the wise way, is to not prioritize anyone and to love them all and to not give anyone to the gods. But from what you say, to start with ourselves, choosing myself, choosing to protect myself here would be the right way. And they can choose to protect themselves the same way. Like instead of maybe saying to the guards, "Hey, take me," that would not be loving myself. Instead, I should look for ways to protect me and also to not give anyone in that group. Do you understand my question here?
I think I do.
Because,
but
excuse me, because the monk, I remember, said that one way is to give myself, hey God, take me, kill me. I will be the one who sacrifices himself to others because here is my brother, here is my friend, here is my sister. So I will sacrifice myself for them. But I think you would not say so because that would not be love for myself.
Yeah, I actually wouldn't use this analogy because it's so unlikely, it's so hypothetical that it's unrealistic to even have that situation occur, that it doesn't even make sense to use that type of analogy for helping someone to understand love. So I wouldn't even use that type of story.
Okay, then let me give an example from my life.
Yeah.
We were, me and my friends were playing football, and there were one that is an extra player that we make him sit on the bench and we exchange ourselves with him. Like every 10 minutes, one sit and he plays. So what I was thinking when I was playing and he was sitting, I was thinking that, Yusuf, you have trained your mind and you can go and sit and make him play. He hasn't trained his mind. He may be crave to play. If I were to sit, I will be generous and I will not be affected by not playing and this kind of stuff. But then I thought that if I were always to, let's leave the word always, if I were to go and sit and let them play and do this kind of stuff, then I am not doing this action for myself, which I came here for, which is playing. This being Yusuf also is interested in playing, so doing that might not be love. And let's leave also generosity aside. Let's talk about love, that I have love for him and I was interested in him playing. But I should also be interested in myself playing because this is the reason why I came to the game. So what do you think?
What do I think about what?
Which think is the which opinion here that I was thinking was the wise one, that our life was a truth, is thinking that I should also prioritize myself and play instead of just giving my time for others.
Anytime you're doing
I have love for myself.
Anytime you're making any decisions, you'd always like to make it from the middle way. So if you're playing an extensive amount of time, then your mind is craving, right? And you're not sharing the ability to play the sport. But if you were all the way on the other side where, you were playing just for 1 minute and the game is, 90 minutes long, then you're on all the way on the other side too. So you always need to come to the middle way. So this isn't so much about love as it is about craving, desire, attachment, because the way that you're describing this is you're trying to control what the other person experiences. What you need to be able to do is make decisions about what you experience and be sure that you're doing this in the middle way so that you're not hoarding and craving and being selfish and playing extensively yourself, but you're also not on the other side too, where you're only just playing 1 minute. And everybody gets to make their own decisions. So let's just say you've been playing for, about half of the game. You can go to your friend who's sitting on the bench and said, hey, would you like to play? And they're either going to say yes or no. Right. And if they say no, say, okay, well, I guess I'll just go ahead and keep playing then. And then if they say, yes, I would like to play. Oh, okay, great. Then I'll sit down. Right. So this isn't about love. This is about practicing the middle way where you're not selfish and you're not also, not, just playing 1 minute of the football itself.
Do I have the time to remake the question?
Okay, go ahead.
So let's say that every player has 10 minutes and that guy was sitting on the bench and I thought with myself, Yusuf, you have trained your mind. If you were to sit on the bench, it would be fine for you. Let's be generous here and give him like my time all the time. Let's give him my time. Would that be me not giving myself enough? Like, I came to play, but I took that away to give it to someone out of generosity. Would that be not giving myself enough? Or it's fine?
That's going to be a case-by-case basis, Yusuf. This is something you and I have talked about many times where you tend to look for one permanent answer for every situation, where each situation is going to be different. There's going to be different variables. If you'd like to play, then you go ahead and play. And if you're not interested in playing, then you don't play. You've got to be able to look at all the different variables and do this from the middle way, rather than trying to come up with one stock answer that's going to be a permanent answer to always do it that way.
Okay. Yesterday, there were a friend of mine that was so, his mental state was so down and he was miserable and depressed and all these kind of negative feelings. And he asked me to stay with him. We were on a phone call and he asked me to stay with him. And I did stay with him out of compassion and love and this kind of stuff. But I ended up staying late, and because I stayed late and I would not be able to have enough sleep, I did not go to college where I had important exam. So would that be unwise? This me thinking that I am doing compassion and love for him was on my account? Was I maybe harmed myself here?
It sounds like it, but again, you got to look at each situation independently. You got to look at all the different variables of what's going on in the situation. It's not a matter of just giving those few criteria and saying whether it was wise or unwise. It sounds like you did harm yourself by choosing not to go, that, if you're going to fail the class or you're not going to get a good grade on your test and these kinds of things. But at the same time, you got to look at, what is it that your friend really needs here? So there's so many variables, Yusuf. It's not possible for me to just, based on the few little things that you just said, to say whether it's 100% wise or unwise. It's not that straightforward. That's what it means to move to a higher consciousness and be able to make a decision based on all the variables that you have in front of you.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. So you have a question here? Yeah.
Yeah, so my question is about reassurance of the partner whilst we are on this journey. So since you mentioned with your wife, as you have evolved, you are changing, right? Like for the better. But I think sometimes it's a little bit scary for the other one because they might not be doing it and you still love them, right? You want them to understand I unconditionally love you. But because their state of mind is not there, they don't perceive it that way. So they might be asking for assurance. And my question is, would you be still giving reassurance to your wife, let's say, and keep telling her, yes, of course, I love you the most, even though you know you are still conditioning her, but she needs it at the moment because she might not be understanding this detachment, like I love whole world, not just you.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't do that because it's actually making the situation worse. You're not actually solving any problem by feeding a craving, desire, attachment, because that's what the person has in that situation. They have a craving to hear a certain thing from you. And if they hear that thing, they get happy. But if they don't hear it, they feel sad. Well, if I give them what they want to hear in that situation, then that means there's going to be another situation and another situation and another situation, because it's not solving the underlying root cause, which is the craving. So it's better to not feed a craving like that and allow their mind to let it go. And that's actually what's going to get to their peace and joy. And sometimes understanding loving kindness doesn't mean you give everybody everything that they want. Sometimes you need to do things in a way that allows this person's mind to let go, and they're going to have to walk through painful feelings in order to be able to get to the peace and the joy. I can give you some examples of this if you like. So like my son, at one time I noticed that he was attached to Sprite, this soda Sprite, right? And one time I bought him a Sprite, and I used to pick him up from school, and I had it waiting for him in the car when he got in the car. And when he got in the car, he saw the Sprite, and he was like, "Oh, Dad, thank you so much." I was like, "Yeah, that's great." And he popped it open, and when he popped it open, I said, "Can I have a sip?" And because I knew that if he was craving, he wouldn't be interested to share it with me, right? So he said, "Yeah, here you go." And then he gave it to me, which I was surprised actually. And then I put it up to my lips, and I hadn't even started drinking it. I just put it up to my lips, and he started yelling. This was really rare. This is like the only time I've ever seen him like so angry. He started like, "Gosh, what are you doing? That's my soda. You're going to drink it." Ah. And I was like, Bailan, wow. Like, so he was really angry, right? So I'm not going to tell the whole story, but nonetheless, you see what happened, right? And he got angry, he got frustrated, he, went, he even turned red and all this kind of stuff. And then we were on our way to football, but we ended up going home instead because his mind wasn't ready to go play soccer, right? So in this situation, he was angry. He was really frustrated, and he had to go through those painful feelings in order to be able to get to the peace and joy, where now he's not attached to Sprite anymore. He'll share it with me. He'll share it with anybody. He'll share it with his mom. And we've done many things besides that. That wasn't the only thing, but I needed to do that in order to train his mind to let go, because I saw that he was attached to it. Had I never done that, then there would have been some other situation. Say it was a boss, or maybe it was his father-in-law, or some other person somewhere along the line. He was going to experience discontentedness related to this Sprite. So sometimes one of the most loving and kind things you can do is help somebody overcome a craving, desire, attachment, training their mind to let go. But you can't really do those kinds of things until you become more skillful yourself to understand how to do these things. But in a very basic situation that you're describing, where somebody is wanting that reassurance, you can know that that's an underlying craving. And if you feed that, it's just like feeding a monster, and that craving is going to get bigger and bigger, and it's going to be more and more painful for them to get away from it. So you would like to not feed it right up front. And that's the most loving and kind thing you can do for that person, because now it gives their mind the opportunity to let it go. And now they can be peaceful in all situations. They don't have that craving any longer. So now my son, he can be peaceful whether he has Sprite or he doesn't have Sprite, and he can share it with other people. And now, but at that one time when he had that craving, his mind was bound up. It was stuck. So the most loving thing that I could do for him is help him through that. And then I was able to help him get through those painful feelings. So that's what I would recommend for someone to do. But you would really like to make sure you're doing this skillfully and that you are not attached to the person themselves. Because if you're attached to your child and you see them upset, now you're going to be upset because they're upset. So I wasn't attached to my son, and I knew that he was going to have to get upset in order for him to get away from this craving. It's part of the process of eliminating craving. Sometimes when we think about getting to enlightenment, we think about it's like, walking through the forest and walking on a rainbow and flowers are sprinkling down and, we're on clouds. By the time you get to enlightenment, that's essentially the way it is. But on the process of getting there, it's very painful because your mind's so used to getting these pleasant feelings from your cravings. And now when you move away from your cravings, it's going to be painful. It's going to hurt. The way I talk about it is I say it's like walking through the fire to appreciate the fresh air on the other side. And when you're walking through the fire, it really hurts. So my son was brutally angry with me during that whole process. But now if you talk to him, you say, hey, how do you think about your dad doing that thing with the Sprite? He'll tell you like, oh, I'm so glad he did that. He's really pleased. But in the process, when he was in the fire, he didn't like it at all. But now when he's in the fresh air, he really enjoys that his mind is completely free of that particular craving. So I talk about it as walking through the fire to appreciate the fresh air on the other side, or it's like getting out of the mafia. When you join the mafia, you get all these pleasant feelings, you get all these new friends and new ways to make money. But when you try to get out of the mafia, it's very painful. It's the same thing with craving, desire, attachment. For you to get to enlightenment, you're going to have to walk through your painful feelings in order to get there. So where you can help somebody else do that, that's the most loving and kind thing that you could ever do. Mm-hmm. Yep. Did you have a question? I saw you grabbed a mic. That was just in case later you have a question. Just getting it ready.
And what to do when your partner have many expectations from you, like when he try control you, like you can go out like with your friends, or you can wearing like that, or like some kind of like you have to do this or you have to do that. Like how explain it for your partner?
If somebody's trying to put expectations on you, what should you do? Do just the opposite. Do just the opposite. Right? So that way their mind doesn't get a chance to control you. And then, because if you have expectation, your partner has an expectation of you here and you work really, really hard to get to that expectation, you know what's going to happen once you meet their expectations? They're going to get really happy that you're meeting their expectations for a few days, maybe like a week or two, but then their expectations are going to do that. And then you work really, really hard to do that. And then you do that. And now all of a sudden you're not living the life that you would like to live. You're living the life they want you to live. And now you don't feel free, right? And that's not love. So someone putting their expectations on you, they think they're loving you by doing that, but it's actually confining you and it's requiring you to do things their way. And now you don't feel free. You don't feel comfortable to do things your way. So you would like to do things exactly the opposite. So I can give you an example on this one too. A long time ago, when me and my son were sitting at the table, and at that time, my wife used to wash the dishes all the time. And we used to get a cup of water and we would use it for several days, because if we got a brand new cup every single time, she'd be washing 8 or 10 cups for me, 8 or 10 cups from him, 8 or 10 cups from her, and she'd have like 30 cups a day to be able to wash. So we would use the same cup for like 10 days perhaps, right? And we just leave it on the kitchen table. Well, one time she came down, we were sitting there, and she's like, why don't you guys put all these cups in the sink? Why do you have to have them all over? Like, she got really angry, right? Really frustrated. We just looked at her. We looked at my son. She walked away. She went upstairs. And I said, you know what we need to do, right? He said, yup, I sure do. So we went and got every single cup we could find in the house, and we put them everywhere. We put them on the couch, on the sofa, on the floor, on the TV. We put them everywhere. And she came back downstairs like an hour or two later, and she came back downstairs and she looked and she looked. You could see her mind was like rewiring. And then she just walked away and went upstairs. And we never heard from her ever again on that particular topic because her mind let it go. Whereas if we would have like shuddered in fear and just did things her way, then it was going to be the next thing. And the next thing, you got to put your shoes over here. You got to put your jackets over here. You got to do it this way. And now you're not living the life that you would like to live. So you would like to ultimately do just the opposite. Because otherwise you're going to feed this monster and it's going to just get bigger and bigger and bigger. And now you're not living the life that you would like to live. Mm-hmm. Okay, we have a question coming in from Melody on Zoom. 1 second here. Okay, she's asking, let me just make sure. Yep, Melody's asking, I want to ask how you handle big differences with your partner. For example, if one wants family but the other wants a new exciting career, it seems to me there's no easy solution like going to the movies. In that case, is letting each other go and maybe growing apart the only way to love? Yeah, if you have something really significant like that where one person wants children and the other person doesn't, you're going to need to talk about that, of course, and figure that out. The ideal thing would be to talk about that even before you get into a serious relationship. But if you're in a serious relationship and something's changed, then either one person's going to have to let go of wanting to have a kid, or the other person's going to need to be willing to have a kid, or you're just going to need to decide that you're not compatible with each other. Me and my first wife did this. Is like when I first met her, I came to Thailand for the first time. We got married in the U.S. and we got married here, and then after coming to Thailand, which I'd never been to Thailand before we got married, after coming here and being here a couple of times, I decided this is where I'd like to live for the rest of my life. And she was Thai, and she said, I don't want to live in Thailand. I'm just not interested. I want to live in the U.S. the rest of my life. Well, I didn't even know about Thailand when we first met. I'd never even been here. So something had changed in my mind, and we didn't even have the ability to figure this out before our marriage. But once we found out that and other things, we decided to no longer be married. Right. And she moved on and she's doing the things that she would like to do. And I moved on and doing the things that I would like to do. So you're going to have potentially things like that. And it's better to not cling to the relationship and hold on to it and craving permanence and force yourself to do one thing or another. But if having children is really important to you, or having a career is really important to you, and both of you are deciding that that's what you're going to do, it's not like one person's right and the other person's wrong. It's just that, hey, we have two different interest here, and now let's just move on and realize that that's the best thing to do. So when me and my first wife divorced, we figured out a way that both of us could win. We didn't fight and one person win and one person lose. We figured out a way that we could both win. In fact, as part of our divorce, when we sold our house, we went outside and we talked for a while, just kind of reminiscing about some of the memories from our relationship and things like that, and in this house and stuff like that. And we had a very cordial divorce that she got what she needed and I got what I needed, and we moved on. So you can do that if you don't cling to the relationship. And something big like careers and children, it's best to talk about those ahead of time, but things can change as you're in the relationship, and you need to be open to that change. Because if you got to the end of your life, let's just say you're the person who wants to have kids. If you get to the end of your life and you never had a child, you would still have that craving. Because there's two ways to eliminate a craving. You can cut it off and let it go. And in order to do that, you need to distance yourself from the craving, whatever the object is. You need to distance yourself and train your mind to let it go. So that's one way to eliminate it. But you can also fulfill it. If you have a certain craving, like say I always wanted to go to the Philippines and I never went, well, I could cut it off and let it go, or I could just go. And that'll extinguish the craving. So oftentimes kids are this way. If you have a craving for children, oftentimes the best way to extinguish that is to actually have one or two, or however many you would like to have a child, and that's what's going to extinguish it. So if you're in a relationship where someone doesn't want a child and they're not interested in that, you're going to still have that craving. If you were the person that was interested in the children, then that person would still have that craving, and they would never be able to get to enlightenment as long as they have that craving. So it's better to be in a relationship where you can fulfill that type of craving. And yes, that is loving them too. You can love someone from afar, right? You don't have to be in a relationship with someone to love them, right? Because it's a genuine interest in seeing them be well. And if this person would like a career and I would like a child, well, I would like to see them be well, and I'm going to move on from this relationship and let them go do what they would like to do, which is have a career. And then I'm going to go somewhere else and potentially have a child, right? So that's still loving that person, having a genuine interest in seeing them be well. Okay, let me see if we have any other questions anywhere. Okay, I don't see any other questions. So in order to practice this true love with other people in your relationship, in all the different relationships that you have, you're going to also need to love yourself, right? Because oftentimes we don't love ourselves. Oftentimes we put expectations on ourselves and try to control what it is that we do on a day-to-day basis. We need to be able to have goals, objectives, or interests that you're gradually working towards through wise decision-making with ambition and motivation and enthusiasm, where oftentimes a goal is actually not a goal at all. It's a craving, desire, attachment masquerading as a goal. Not only can craving, desire, attachment masquerade as love, but sometimes people are describing a goal, but it's actually a craving, desire, attachment. If someone has a goal and they're happy if they accomplish their goal and they're unhappy if they don't get their goal, that's not actually a goal. That's a craving, desire, attachment. You're basing your feelings on whether you get this thing or not. So you would like to get to the point where you can come to the middle and you can gradually work towards your goals, objectives, or interests, and you can maintain your contentedness either way. So if you're working towards a goal and you're 80% of the way there, then you could look at it and say, okay, well, I could add more time, give myself more time to accomplish this goal. Or I could add more resources in order to allow me to accomplish this goal. Or, you know what, I'm fine with 80%. I don't need to go any further. I'll just stop right here. And now you can maintain your joy. But if it's a craving, desire, attachment, you won't do that. You'll just push and push and push and push and push. So a true goal is something that you're not basing your feelings on whether you accomplish it or not. And that's how you can love yourself, is not put expectations on yourself, but instead work towards your goals and objectives with wise decisions, not forming your feelings based on whether you get that thing or not. And that way you can stay motivated, because oftentimes the mind can see this chasing. And if it's not doing that, it's over here feeling dull and lethargic and lazy. And neither one of those is where you'd like to be. You'd like to be in the middle, where you're gradually working towards goals, objectives, or interest, and you're not forming your feelings on whether you accomplish that thing or not. And you can actually do it with ambition and enthusiasm, and it's sustainable, because a craving, desire, attachment, you'll get exhausted with that and you'll burn out and you'll give up. Or you'll just keep pushing yourself and killing yourself until you get there. Or you'll be all the way on the other side where you're dull and lethargic. But if you have a true goal and you're not basing your feelings on whether you accomplish it or not, you can actually pursue that all the way to the end of your life. And you can maintain your joy and your happiness, because your happiness and joy isn't coming from the goal. It's coming internally. It's unconditioned. So for example, I have a goal to share these teachings with as many people in the world as possible by the time I die. Well, if I had a craving, desire, attachment, I couldn't be happy in all situations. I could only be happy if there was maybe 100 or 500 or 1,000 or 10,000 people learning from me, right? I would have certain conditions that I would have to be met in order to have happiness. Or I'd be all the way on the other side where I'm dull and lethargic and lazy and not doing anything at all. But if I come to the middle where I'm just making wise decisions to work towards this goal of sharing the teachings, well, if I have one person in the class, or if I have 20 people or 20,000 people, I can be just as happy, right? Because I've been in environments where I taught 20,000 people at one time. And I've been in situations where I've only taught one person at a time. And I've even been in situations where I showed up when I first started teaching here, where there was nobody here because they didn't know I was even teaching. And I would show up and nobody would be here at all. And that was early on when I first started teaching. So if I had a craving, desire, attachment, I would have been disgruntled in those situations. I would have been angry, and I would have stopped teaching, right? So if you have wise decisions that you're working towards a certain goal and objective, you can do it through the end of your life, and you'll never actually burn out because you're not forming your feelings on whether you get this thing or not. You just understand it's wise to do this, and you're just gradually working towards it. And you don't have these conditions that need to be met in order for you to be happy. You can have unconditional happiness. So if you put expectations on yourself, you can't love yourself unconditionally. You can only be happy with yourself if you've actually accomplished whatever it is that you're trying to accomplish. Because sometimes you're going to meet your goals and objectives, and sometimes you're not. That's impermanence, right? But if you put an expectation on yourself that you've always got to meet your goals and objectives, you can only be happy when that happens. And you're not going to have that happen all the time permanently. Then, in terms of parents and caregivers, sometimes we have expectations of them too. And you have difficult relationships with your parents and caregivers. I've never met anybody who has ever agreed with 100% of everything their parents have ever done. I'm going to ask you guys here and you guys online, please raise your hand if you agreed with every single thing your parents have ever done in their life. No? I don't see anybody online either. No? Oh, who's that? Alberto? I think Alberto probably has a question, or Martha has a question. Probably not saying that they agree with their parents 100%, but I'll ask them. So I've never met anybody that's agreed with their parents 100% of everything they've ever done. So if we can only love our parents when they do things our way, then we can't love them at all times. So they're going to do things differently than us. And we can love them as a person, meaning we have a genuine interest in seeing them be well, while disagreeing with the choices and decisions that they make. And that's okay. And then in terms of life partners, you're going to disagree with their decisions sometimes too. And you can love them as they are. If you're interested in having a life partner and having a successful relationship, there's essentially 3 things that you need in a life partnership. You need a partner who understands they are not perfect, that they are a work in progress. You need a partner who isn't blaming you for their feelings. And you need a partner who's willing to do this inner work to grow and develop and become a better person, because they are imperfect and they need to be willing to do the work to become a better person. And you're going to need those qualities too, where you understand you are not perfect. You are an imperfect being, and don't blame other people for the feelings that you experience. And you're willing to do the work to grow and develop and become a better person. And if you have this type of person in a life partnership, you guys can make a wonderful life together. But if you have the opposite of this, if you have someone who thinks they're perfect, if you have someone who's blaming you for the feelings that they're experiencing when that's not true, and they're not willing to do the inner work to grow and develop and become a better person, they are stuck. And if you're in a relationship with them, you're stuck too. Right? So you would like to have those 3 qualities in a life partnership. Someone who understands that they're imperfect, they're not blaming their feelings on you, and they're willing to do inner work to grow and develop and become a better person. And if you're doing those same things too, you guys can rock and roll and have a wonderful life together, right? So that's what I would suggest for partnerships, is that you start out with that and learn how to not put expectations on each other. So this topic of true love, while we're talking about it and we're having a certain discussion about it, and Martha and or Alberto have a question here, it's important to understand that you're not going to be able to go out there in the world and practice this instantly, right? You might learn a little bit about it today, but there's more for you to learn about it. And then the more you learn about it and you cultivate the wisdom about it, then you need to go out in the world and actually practice it. And it's going to take time for you to gradually implement this, because you're not used to doing things this way potentially. You might be used to putting expectations on people and trying to pressure people to do things your way. You might have been in arguments with people where you're adamantly trying to convince them that they have to stop doing what they're doing, or else you're going to continue to get angry and mad and frustrated. Right? You might have been in fights to death, right? I know that me and my wife used to do that. We used to be in fights to death, right? It was like two unenlightened beings functioned like animals, where I had one way that I wanted to do things, she had another way that she wanted to do things, and we would fight to death to prove who was right and who was wrong, because I wanted it my way and she wanted it her way. Well, you learn that there's a better way of life here, that you can sit down and you can have discussions and you can talk and you can figure out what would be the best situation. And if you're not tied to your idea and they're not tied to their idea, then you can just walk away with whatever the best idea is, rather than being tied to your idea or tied to their idea, right? But your mind won't do that if you have craving, desire, attachment. So you need to be willing to have discussions and conversations and understand that you're not going to be able to go out in the world and instantly implement this and transform your relationships instantaneously. It can take you 3 months, 6 months, a year to even understand what is true love, and then some more time to actually practice it. It took my wife probably a good 5 years to eliminate her attachment to her son when she was actively working on it, even with the help of the teacher living right alongside of them, right? So it took her a long time to let go of her expectations of her son, right? So it's going to take you some time here. Don't put an expectation on yourself that you're going to go out in the world and now all of a sudden have wonderful relationships just because we've talked about this some. You're going to need to talk about it some more. You're going to need to reflect on it more, and you're going to need to practice it. You're going to get more help. You're going to need to reflect and practice it. Get more help to learn some more, reflect and practice. And over time, your relationships can gradually improve. So this is everything that I have to share with you guys. And I'm going to go to Alberto and or Martha and see what questions you guys have. Go ahead, guys.
Hello, Teacher David. My question is about true love for our son. So we have made great progress studying the teachings of Buddha regarding our craving for always seeing him happy. So now when he's unhappy or had a hard day, well, that's life and that's how it is. We're not jumping in solving anything. But I see in myself still a craving or a misconception about the role of the parents. Like, I think I am like, okay, financial situations gonna be hard in America here. We had to provide him with a housing in the future. So while another parents said, no, once they graduate, they're on their own. And I cannot get rid of that. I think love is also helping him financially as much as we can for the future. How responsible or how that is related to love, or what's my responsibility? I'm very confused about that.
Okay, so it's important to understand that you really don't have any true responsibility. This is something that comes along with expectations. And I know this sounds kind of strange for some people, but the mind, because of its expectations, it will adopt that and say that this is my responsibility, right? The only thing that we actually have to do in the world is die. That's the only thing. Everything else is optional. The only thing we're required to do and we have to do is die. Everything else is optional. So you're not required or you're not responsible to do these things for your son, but you might choose to do that. And if you're going to choose to do that and help him financially to get going in the world, I would suggest you do it gradually and slowly and ensure that he's stepping up to be able to do these things. So let's just say you would like to help him buy a house, since that's what you mentioned, right? I don't suggest you buy the entire house for him, right? That you maybe that you provide a certain percentage of the price or the loan amount or the deposit, and he contributes the other amount, so that he has to step up to the plate and he has to do a certain amount of work to be able to accomplish that it's not just a handout from mom or dad. And you can start with small things, right? Like even my son, he got a mobile phone when he was like 11 or 12, and I paid the first 3 months of the bill, and I told him that this is what I was going to do. And I said, at the 4th month, you're going to need to pay it for yourself. And then I gave him opportunities to be able to make some money. Like he edits our podcast. and he makes a little bit of money, and he washes my car and cleans my car, and he makes a little bit of money. And he was doing that for a while, but now he stopped doing it and his phone's turned off. He doesn't have any phone service, right? And that was his choice. So he maintained it for like maybe the better part of a year. But then after that, he stopped doing the work, and now he doesn't have a phone service. And he can see that gamma that he didn't do the work. So therefore, he's not getting the wholesome result. So you'd like to start small. And I know your son's like, I think 20 and 19 or 20 now. So if you're currently paying his mobile phone and things like this, you would like to start transitioning some of those things over to him slowly so that he can start taking care of more and more of those kinds of things so that he's not dependent on you. The word dependent is actually just another word for craving, desire, attachment, that his mind is attached and he's now dependent on you, where he's not fully standing on his own 2 feet and confident in being able to accomplish the things that he needs to accomplish in the world in terms of his financial support, his food, his clothing, his shelter, medical care, and all these things. So you'd like to gradually transition this over to him, starting with small things like mobile phones and, meals and things like this, that he gradually comes into being able to do that. The whole idea of your child becoming 18 and it's like, all right, they're fully on their own at that point, that's not realistic. And in my opinion, that wouldn't be having loving kindness for this being. It would be better to kind of help them to gradually transition and gradually stand up on their own 2 feet. And, whether they need to stay at home for, until they're 20, 22, 25, 28, 30, whatever it is, you can gradually work with the child, but just make sure that they're gradually growing and developing and that they're not just lazy and complacent and sitting around and doing nothing. And if you build some things in, like my son at this age, he doesn't have any phone service and he can see that mom and dad aren't going to pay it for him. So that would be my suggestions. Do you have any follow-ups on that, Martha?
Oh, Teacher David, that was very, very good. Very,
Okay.
very, very right thing to do. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Okay, let me see if we have any other questions anywhere. Okay, I don't see any other questions anywhere. Okay, so what I'm going to do then is just end class by thanking all of you guys for joining. Thank you for your interest to grow and develop on the path. Next week, we're going to be in chapter 16, which is titled Dissolving the Ego. Ego Serves No Purpose. This is where you're going to be able to understand what the ego is and how to eliminate it from the mind. Because as long as you have ego in your mind, you'll come across to people as being arrogant and prideful and boastful. In some cases, you might even be putting yourself below people, looking up to people with such awe and admiration that you're all shaken up and uncalm. And now you're not going to be able to reside with people harmoniously. The ego actually gets in the way of loving all beings, actually, and having true love for people. So in order to get to true love, you actually need to get the ego out of the way so that you can just love people as they are, because your ego is going to be like a dirty window that you're looking out at the world through this dirty window. So when you get rid of this ego, you can actually look at the world in a different way and with a new light. So this ego doesn't actually serve any purpose. So I'm going to explain to you what it is. I'm going to explain to you the symptoms of it and the complications that it's causing in your life. And then I'm going to explain to you how to eliminate it with very specific tools and techniques that I haven't taught you guys yet. And of course, having the Eightfold Path well underway is going to be helpful for you. But now we're going to go in and talk about certain techniques to target the ego. And then, of course, on Wednesday, we do loving kindness meditation this Wednesday, and I'm going to open up to whatever questions you guys have as part of that. So have a very wonderful and lovely rest of your day, whatever you choose to do, and perhaps I'll see you next time. Sawadee khap. Sawadee khap. Thank you again for watching. Enjoy your meditation. Look forward to seeing you online and answering any questions that you might have. Thank you so much.